So while that's working, the second thing that we want to get set up is VS Code. And so this is not Visual Studio, which is an old product from Microsoft. This is a newer thing, which is also language agnostic. So go ahead and run that installer. And yeah, go through the default installation settings, except for this one. We do want to add Open with Code dropdown. And go ahead and let that install. And say launch Visual Studio Code. And here we go. We can, take a look at the different color themes that come with it out of the box. Go with Kimby Dark. And this is basically a text editor, but it has a whole bunch of features which make it easier to work with code. And so the first thing we want to do is install some extensions. So go over to this extension tab here, and it already knows that we want Python and Jupyter, since Python is one of the most popular programming languages at the moment. And so these are now installed and enabled. And so if we open a folder over here, or better yet, what we can do is create a new folder, and we'll call this our first script. Go ahead and right click on this. We now have this drop down, Open with Code. So that will open up that folder, and we'll say yes and trust the authors. That will open up that folder in here. So we can right click on this Explorer here in the Explorer tab on the sidebar. We can say new folder, give that a name, new file, and we can create a Jupyter notebook here. We'll call it first notebook, and here the extensions are important. So we'll say .ipynb, which is a Jupyter notebook, and you can tell that it recognizes that format because it changes the icon, right? So Py will give you a Python icon, and the icon changes depending on what it is. And then since we have the extension installed and enabled, it will actually open this in an interactive format here. So we can add a code cell or a markdown cell. So first we'll add a markdown. And if you're not familiar with markdown, it is a simple just text formatting tool. So we're going to type heading 1 and hit Shift Enter in order to run this cell, and that will render the markdown in place in this notebook. And so we don't actually have access to our Python environment yet. We need to go over to Select Kernel here, press Enter for Python environments, and you see we have the base environment and then first env that we've already set up. And so there's some basic keys to get used to here. So B is create a new cell below a new code cell, or alternatively you can click this add code cell. A is create cell above, X is cut cell, V is paste cell. And all of these work when you have something selected, and you can shift select multiple cells, so you write A here and B here, and if you shift select both, hit C, that will copy, and you can actually paste both of those lines into a cell together. But we're going to just import one of these libraries that we just installed, and we'll use alias as GPD. You'll notice that it doesn't allow us to run this until we install ipykernel. So you can just say install there, and that will be the same thing as if we are installing it in our environment from here. So this finished. It was able to run that code cell because we have a little check mark and a little symbol showing how many seconds it took to complete that command. And so now we have access to anything in GeoPandas. So we're going to take a look at the documentation here. And just go ahead and copy this command in here. And we are using the alias GPD. No need to write out GeoPandas. And so each code cell will run a little bit of code at a time. So we can run this, and in order to print something, you just type the variable out at the bottom of the cell. No need to use the print command, and shift enter to run that, or use this little play button up at the top, and it prints out a nice HTML render of whatever data object you're looking at. So we can, say gdf.plot, and it will also render nice little plots in here, so we can see visually what we're working with. And so, yeah, that is just the start. So when you, anytime you want to try out code, just make sure that you have the proper libraries installed in your environment, and then it's always simple to try it out in a Jupyter notebook. Eventually, you'll want to make the leap to also using Python files and Python modules and creating packages. But that is VS Code and Python environments in a nutshell.